Hi there, folks. My name's NovaWing24, and welcome to a very special interview today. We're coming for the upcoming release of the World Update 21 Australia for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I am excited to be here not only with the man of the hour, Jorg, from Microsoft Flight Simulator, but also with a special guest from the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. Jayson, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, mate. My name's Jayson McKeller. I'm an Assistant Commissioner with the Rural Fire Service, and I'm the Director of Aviation for the.
Great to have you on board here. And I suppose just in case there is somebody out there who doesn't know you, you probably should introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. Hello, Tristan. Good to see you. My name is Jorg Neumann. I am the head of Microsoft Flight Simulator.
It is fantastic. All right, so I guess I'm going to start with I'll start with both of you. I suppose is that we're finally back here in Australia for another world update for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I guess Jorg, tell me about this new expansion, and then Jayson, if I can get you to come in and say, how were you involved with this expansion coming to Australia?
So Tristan, I got a deck. Do you want me to show deck stuff or not?
I mean, sure, you can show me deck things.
All right. Let me find it. A deck, here it is. Ta-ta. Oh yeah.
Wow. I always love a good PowerPoint presentation.
All right. So, one of the things that's a lot of people ask me, why Australia? Because you've already done it in 2022, I think. I think what's fascinating about Australia is just how much this country is actually ingrained with aviation. And, I sometimes look at stats like this one, which is the list of the countries with the most airports in the world. So Australia is number 3. United States is first, not too surprising. Brazil, maybe a little bit surprising. Then comes Australia. The next thing is, this is the number of private planes per country. Again, the United States is way ahead, then comes China, Canada, Brazil, and then comes Australia again. So I think Australia really is a hub for aviation, and not just real world aviation, because that's what this is, also digital aviation. So I looked a little bit, sometimes we say Microsoft Flight Simulator has seen 20 million users and all that stuff. I'm like, where are they actually coming from? So from Australia, 500,000 of your countrymen have actually played Microsoft Flight Simulator, which means every 50th person in this country has played the game, which is great. And you know this better than anyone. So obviously we've been around for a while, and I'm going to skip this. And World Update 21. So the reason why we did it, the love for aviation in the country, just the sheer number of users we have in the country, but it also oftentimes comes down to where can we actually get great data. Mm-hmm. And as you might know, we do photogrammetry with a company called Excel Imaging, is a close partner of ours, and they have just the best program in Australia of pretty much of any country. So here's their device. It's got the Osprey 4.1. What that gives us is 7.5 centimeter imagery that we can then turn into 11.5 centimeter 3D meshes in our photogrammetry cities. And I'm just going to go through this like a rocket. So I try to organize it by state. So here's the West. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce all these places, because I'm just going to mess it up.
Yeah. I know Yandicott very well.
All right, great. But so here we go, because there's a lot. And what we did, basically Excel has a program here, and we benefit from that as Flight Sim. And this world update is unprecedented in that we now have, I think, the 40 largest cities in the country are all present in Microsoft Flight Simulator, all have been scanned. So when we did World Update 7 back in 2022, we had 6,000 square kilometers. Now we have over 30,000 square kilometers. So I think that alone was already like awesome, because this is, as you know, digital tourism, and just the realism of it all is really cool. So here's sort of a map of all what we call areas of interest. We basically covered all the zones. And I was joking, right after it was done, I got a call from Excel, and they said, hey, we just finished Alice Springs. Do you want this? I'm like, it's too late. We already finished everything. But at some point, Alice Springs, I'm sure, is going to be coming. And then we did Australia Points of Interest, just And we had already made a bunch for World Update 7. So we basically went around the country, talked to a lot of locals, quite frankly, which is why we get to things like the Big Orange or the Big Lobster or, all kinds of other big things, Big Mango, Big
The
Guitar.
big guitar, yep.
Then maybe my favorite coming up in a second, Big Koala, for sure. I looked at his eyes. I'm like, really? Okay, but cool. So anyways, we have another 30, I think 39 or 30, 36 POIs. And when you combine that with what we did back in the day, we now have 130. So when now we have the 40 largest cities, a lot of the real good POIs, and I'm starting to feel really great of how we're representing Australia. Then, of course, we did new airports because we're flight sim. So we did, and with airports, we always try to spread them out, in the country. So here is Broome Airport, Western Australia, and Gaia did these, very, very, very good developer. So this is Northern Territory, Catherine Airport, which is sort of a military base. Then in the south, we have Cooper Pedy, known from its opal mining and all that stuff. And then Broken Hill in New South Wales. Bathurst, if you're a glider pilot, you know Bathurst for sure. And then Lord Howe Airport, which is just beautiful.
Lord Howe, I have been there, and it's amazing how many of these places I've been to that you've shown off. But Lord Howe and Norfolk Island are particularly favourites of mine because
it looks so good.
It is an amazingly beautiful place. It really, really is. So yeah, I'm really impressed to see that get added here. I really am.
Yeah, I have a trailer if you want to see the trailer.
I was going to say we might skip the trailer, but we'll have that sort of playing in the corner here.
So then we get here, which was bringing us over to our relationship here with firefighting. So we did a whole bunch of work, but we also did activities, as you know. So we did some discovery flights, precision landings, bush trips, low altitude challenges, and rally racing. But we also did a special firefighting mission, and maybe that's when we can go over to our colleague.
I was going to say, Jayson, I'd love to hear your input here now about, because your aerial firefighting was one of the big selling points of the community for Microsoft Flight Simulator moving to 2024 from 2020. So I'd love to hear, first about you and your team's involvement with Microsoft and Asobo with developing the mission that's getting included with this update, but also how you use simulation in your actual operations to both train your pilots, train your spotters, and potentially even train your ground controllers. Because my background is in using simulation for training for both pilot and maintainer training. So I'd love to hear about your input and your experience with that.
Yeah, thanks. I think after watching Jorg's slideshow, the first thing I want to do is go on holidays. Though it's brilliant, some iconic locations there. Look, the RFS is it's a bit of a household name, particularly in New South Wales, but every state has a volunteer-based rural fire service, and I think every summer the people of New South Wales they see our aircraft. They see our troops in the field, and they know what we're doing. There's always, it's the nature of this part of the world, whether it's a busy fire season or a quiet fire season, there's going to be fires. So people are going to see us around. And over the years that I've been with the RFS, I've watched the aerial firefighting component just grow. And it started way back when we, used to use some crop dusters and the local dude with a Jet Ranger helicopter. To now, it's we've got a pretty large fleet, and we work closely with industry across New South Wales and Australia to all come together when we need to. And Australia's a pretty big place with not a whole lot of people there, so there's always fires on what we call the urban interface. So there's always fires that are impacting on property. And while a lot of what we do in the RFS is about preventing it and getting ready for a fire, ultimately it's always going to happen. And our aircraft and the industry aircraft are, front line in combating those fires, working absolutely closely with our, tens of thousands of volunteer members on the ground, utilising traditional firefighting measures like fire trucks and bulldozers and those sorts of things. So as we've grown simulation in the RFS, particularly in aviation, and to a point now where we have a number of simulators for our air crew, for our crewmen and women, winch simulators, what we call an air attack supervisor, who the person that flies around and coordinates an aerial attack on a fire, where these people can work and train in a safe environment. Initially, get lots of experience on simulation before they get to go out in the field. And then for our more experienced people that have been around for a long time, being able to jump in and use simulation is vitally important to maintain hours, currency, and generally just keep the hand in.
And how did you find like what was it like working with Jorg and the Yosobo team to actually bring that experience to us mere mortals who get to play at this while admiring the work that you and your team do? Like, and just on a personal note, I was in. I was living in Newcastle a few years ago during the series fires up there, and watching the team go through and actually deploy through there was very impressive. But also, I'm very grateful for that, because you kept a lot of my colleagues' houses and my house still upright and my stuff intact.
Oh, very good. That's a good day at work for us then. I too live in Newcastle. But look, where it's ongoing, working with the team, trying to realistically recreate what we do and what we see from an aircraft in a firefighting situation. And I guess we probably take it for granted seeing it from the air, but it's something that not very many people get to see, unless the Channel 9 chopper's up or something like that and we can get footage. Trying to recreate that. And it's not all about, I talk from my experience as an air attack supervisor, it's not just dropping water on a fire, it's the coordination, switching between multiple radios throughout the day, multiple aircraft coming into your airspace, all of these sorts of things, and trying to recreate that in a simulation, I think it's fantastic. And, we'll continue to work with the team and, continue building on what's an amazing product.
So would you say that when this is available to the wider public, that when they jump into the mission, would you say that is an accurate representation of what it is that you and your crews go through during an event such as a bushfire?
Quite simply, yes. It's I guess one of the, I just spoke about the coordination, and it's obviously flight simulators based on the aviation side of the business, but our people are working constantly with what's in the air and what's on the ground. To get to a point where we can recreate that and see what's going on underneath, I think it's fantastic.
Excellent. So I suppose that does actually lead me into a sort of a bit of a loaded question there, Jorg, because obviously, as I said, my background is, as you and many of my listeners and viewers know, my background is, I've always been a big proponent of using simulation for training, within, as long as you acknowledge the limitations of it. So are we seeing, is Microsoft looking perhaps, and is maybe the RFS going to be the first customer of a professional version of Microsoft Flight Simulator for training purposes and not just for us mere mortals at home?
That's a good question. So maybe I'll say this. You might or might not be aware that we are in what's called virtual airplane by Boeing, which is Boeing rolled this out to train up all their pilots in the future. So this launched. Mm-hmm. So there is a special version of Flight Sim, but it's very unique to that particular Boeing training regime. As far as what was said, I completely agree. This is just the beginning of a journey. Like, how Flight Sim is. We keep chipping at it to get to the perfect sim. So when we did 2024, everybody in the community said, "Hey, how about careers? How about actual things to do?" So we did that. As you know, we have 3 million different things that you can do all over the world, but they're not really in depth, and to
Mhm.
some degree, it's what we knew and what we don't know matters, right? So the firefighting mission was constructed with, but that launched
Mhm.
was constructed with the Sécurité Civile in France, and they do a lot of scooping. So we
Mm.
did a bunch of scooping aircraft,
Yep.
yes, you might know. And then I came here and talked to the team, and they don't do that much scooping. They do filling at the airport. So it was like, okay, so we're going to have to add that here coming up. And then was also just mentioned how much this is about coordination with ground crews and other things, other planes. And we don't have that yet, simply because multiplayer isn't as mature as we want it to be. But like what makes me super happy is when we do something like this World Update Australia,
Mhm.
through that we get in touch with organizations like this and we learn. And by doing so, then we have a common purpose and a common interest. We'll make the sim better, and we'll keep chipping away and making this as authentic as we can.
And that's really really great to hear. And I guess that sort of, if I can sort of steer away maybe from the world update for a moment onto the larger sort of Microsoft Flight Simulator sort of ecosystem for now. Um, so you spoke about, us always wanting to chip away at it and grow the sim and make it the best sim it can be. And I do want to sort of say that, I think you've done a great job. However, we are it had a very turbulent start to life,
Yes.
2024. Um, so I guess there's several questions come from that. So the first one is, what internal processes have Asobo Microsoft brought in to manage that better? So so clearly, the launch of 2024 was not great. Now, as I said, where we're at now is definitely light years ahead of where it was when it started. But what processes that maybe you can or can't talk to have been put into place to ensure that we don't have that experience again?
I mean,
That
I think hopefully you've seen it. Like, so I completely agree. Like, we have to balance what we call surprise and delight with stability and, you know, expected performance.
yeah.
And I think we oversteered on the surprise and delight. We had a global preview event, and then pretty shortly thereafter we launched.
Mm.
And we will never do that again. I think I said that in public before. We will always do flighting, and the plan for future is that
Mhm.
I will personally not even sign up if we don't have a year of flighting prior to making another sim one day.
Mm.
And we do that even now with world updates and sim updates, right? So world updates, not so much because they're honestly not, they're not buggy affairs. They're much more content. Sim updates, we flight for months and months and months and months. And Sim Update 5 just launched, as you probably know.
Yep.
And we were in flighting since February. And I think that's the right way. The product is so complex. There's so many nuances and specifics, not just in the sim itself, per aircraft, per airport,
Mm.
that you can't really have enough testers. So we do more test automation, and then we are going to rely on flighting a lot more.
And it's good to hear that you've got that sort of that plan and that process that in place. And great mention of Sim Update 5 there, and it does. So again, bringing and we brought one more of our PlayStation family into the greater flight simulation family, and with the support of VR. Have you found potentially that there's been a community sentiment and a community concern that and again, like I welcome our PlayStation family members in here. I think it's great. We're making Flight Sim available to more people. I think that's a fantastic goal, and I fully support it. But there's community sentiment and concern that by onboarding so many, such a wide range of platforms, that it detracts away from the ability to troubleshoot those issues. Do you find that is that a concern for you, or is that a misguided concern of the community?
I mean, I would say it this way. I mean, Seb is the perfect guy to answer that question. But like when we talk internally, we say nothing better happens than in a focused optimization effort for a reason.
Hmm.
Like because you always optimize and you always try to make everything faster. But when you have something like a release, it focuses the brain a lot. So, and you see that, right? When you look at the performance of Sim Update 5 on PC, it's significantly better and significantly better on Xbox. And it's significant. I mean, it's the first time on PlayStation. So I think everybody wins by having these types of things.
Mhm.
As you said, we're bringing in tons more players into the hobby. That's net good for the hobby.
Mhm.
But I think it's the optimization really that people crave, and we are doing by putting out these new SKUs, as we call them.
Yep, no worries. Returning back to you for a second, Jayson. So, your experience, have you had a chance to fly the mission that you've helped create for this World Update?
No, not as yet. No. I've had a go. I've had a go in the past, but I've seen little bits and pieces in it.
Oh, okay. I think we lost you at the end there, but
sorry, mate. No,
yep.
I just said, look, what I've seen, it's very impressive, and just the realism from in the cockpit view or sitting behind the aircraft as it's picking up and dropping. It's pretty impressive.
Oh,
we talked quite a bit. Like, for example, we thought scooping could occur in Coffs Harbor, and we're clearly told that this is a misperception on our side, and that we had to move that into the Sussex Inlet.
Yep.
Which is what we did. So basically, I mean, ultimately, we research as much as we can, but nothing is as good a teacher than the people who do it. And so we've learned quite a bit what they do, how they do it, and where they do it. So we adjusted our mission.
And in reality, I've personally used. We do have some Scoopy or the Scoop float, 802 air tractors, or we call them air bosses, fire bosses, and they will work. And I've worked them on, the big rivers on the east coast. The last time I used one was in the Karoo River, just north of Newcastle. And it works exceptionally well. And if you get a couple of those aircraft in a circuit working on a fire relatively nearby, it's a very successful operation. Being able to drop lots of water on an advancing fire. When we get to the west, it's a bit more difficult. There's a lot of dams, or I say a lot. There's not a great deal of dams west of the Great Divide, and most of the rivers, they're a bit hit and miss whether they're constant flow or a good wide reach in the river. But most of the rivers that fall to the east from the Great Divide, they're pretty good, particularly in northern New South Wales.
Yeah, I think I've obviously been being in Australia myself. Many years of drought is always using the retardant where possible instead of the classic image of and this might be a thing for you to get to the team, Jorg, to bring in, is being able to siphon up the water from people's backyard swimming pools.
We talked about that for helicopters. Oh yeah,
I'm sure the helicopter mafia would be most interested to see that come into the sim.
Oh yeah.
So I guess sort of because I know we're sort of running a bit of time here, so I guess I have sort of two sort of major things that I did want to ask, again, probably more in the more existential side of the Microsoft Flight Simulator experience here. So looking further into the future for the franchise, so we recently, obviously Xbox games, Microsoft's Flight Simulator is part of the Xbox games sort of suite of products. We recently had leadership changes at Xbox Games, and with the new leadership being from I'll just say a non-gaming background, and Microsoft Flight Simulator, as you and I know, it often needs a champion in C-suite. We had that with Bill Gates back in the day, and we had that with Phil Spencer. And not knocking your own contributions there, Jorg, but at the end of the day, we need somebody in C-suite who can authorize the money to be able to let us do developing. So I guess a concern that I and some of the communities have is that with the departure of Phil, and with Bill obviously going, and then the Flight Simulator franchise languishing after he left, and now with Phil going as well, is that an existential problem or existential concern for the Microsoft Flight Simulator franchise, given that we have somebody now in charge who is not a gamer, they are an AI expert?
I mean, I would say, like, when you see some, how would I answer this? So I remember when we launched 2020, the next thing I had was two meetings with the board. So two with Satya, one with Bill.
Yep.
And then they put Microsoft Flight Simulator into the beginning of Ignite.
Mhm.
Then we were in the Microsoft Christmas video. And then when the more Satya talks about games, he always says gaming at Microsoft started with Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I think this is a much more ingrained product in the company than maybe looks at from the outside. But
Okay.
it has the name Microsoft in it. It's our longest supported franchise.
Mm.
It has many, many people that love it. And I have no concerns.
Oh, that's and that is good because, as I said, like, it is a concern of mine. But that also leads me to my next question. Now I'm getting old, as we all are, and I very much had an attack of nostalgia very recently about the forgotten stepchild of the
Oh, I know where you're
Microsoft.
going to go. Oh, yes. Oh,
The forgotten stepchild of the Microsoft Flight Simulator franchise. And for those who don't know or might be watching me for the first time, I have a planetary-sized chip on my shoulder about the death of Microsoft Flight back in 2012. Anyway, but to that end, so we recently saw in the wider gaming community a drive about what happens to games at the end of live services, and Microsoft Flight Simulator being it's a live service game. So we've already seen, Microsoft, unfortunately, rightly or wrongly, already has track record of going, this is not a corporate success, so we're going to turn the servers off. With the rise of the Stop Destroying Games initiative getting all the way to the EU Parliament for hearings and for presentations and information, what sort of planning, is there any? And I don't want to jinx it here by saying end of life plan, but at the same time, what's the continuation plan and making sure this title is available for us, because we can still go back and play FS98, FS95, but we are not potentially going to be able to play 20 and 2024.
I mean, I think this is I think we don't need to debate the nature of live service, right? The fact that we have 5 petabytes and we're streaming live data means it's live. It's a live game, and I think we should all celebrate this. I honestly, what you're asking, it makes sense, but it doesn't really ever come up because we have seen more players now than ever before. And every time we add another platform, we add a huge amount of people interested in flight simulation. So it's just not a thing that we concern ourselves with. I think flight sim. I mean, I actually have a presentation that says we're in the golden age of flight simulation right now. There's no question that is true from a sheer user number. And when you look at the Navigraph survey, which made me really happy the other day, I don't know if you looked, but look at the age groups that are playing flight sim.
Yeah,
it's fascinating, and this is exactly what I see wherever I go. Like when I go to Gamescom and stuff, and I look at the lines, it's 3 hours of lines with like 15-year-olds. That's the future. The future of flight simulation has already happened. And I think it started when we did 2020, simply because this whole dream that we all have. Digital Earth, fly around anywhere, total freedom, exactly the same freedom that you have in aviation. I think that the abstraction layer has been removed so much that so many people now can visualize. I mean, it's kind of what was said earlier. We show trailers or something like this. People are like, I want to play this. I want to look at this. And I think I think this dream of like are more true and attainable than ever before. And I've seen no evidence at all that there's fewer people interested. As a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. There's more and more people interested.
Cool, fantastic. All right, so to wrap it up, because I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to throw back to you, Jayson. So what was last quick fire question to both of you. So first off, to you, Jayson, what was your favorite part about bringing your experience as an air boss to Microsoft Flight Simulator?
Okay, I've got to preface this that as the Director of Aviation, I've currently been in this job for 5 days. So, I haven't
Welcome, congratulations on the promotion.
10 days I was a director on the ground. So, look, it's all coming. I've got to get my head into it and have a play and all those sorts of things. But obviously, I have a passion for what we do, and I've done it in another role for a long time. So, bringing as much as we can and working with the team to make it as realistic as possible. And you know what? Based on what Jorg was saying there, you've got a bunch of 15-year-olds lining up to play with this. Hopefully, some of them would show an interest and want to maybe have a career in the RFS or any of the other fire services around. the firefighting community is worldwide, but it's a pretty small community. And if we can encourage people to want to have a career in that or in the fire services in general, what a winner.
No, Jorg and I have spent many hours talking about if we can inspire just one person to join aviation, then we've succeeded.
Yeah,
So your
absolutely.
last question for you: what's your favourite POI in the Australia update?
So I went, so first time in Australia, right? The very first thing I did was ask Alex here on the call, I was like, how do I get to a koala? So I spent my first day going to 2 zoos here. And I, before I came here, I said, on my bucket list is I have to pet a koala. Little did I know that there's, rules that you can't pet a koala. I'm like, shit. But I got really, really close to a koala. And I love the little guy, like the POI, the great koala. I think it's cute, very, very cute. It's exactly the kind of stuff I love.
My wife called them when she saw a koala for the first time. She said fuzzy grey basketball.
Big bites and scratches.
Yes. Just watch out for the drop bears. Just be very careful of the drop bears. They're very dangerous. I'm sure Jayson can tell you all about how dangerous they are in the bush. All right. Well, look, thank you.
I have two more things if you're interested.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm not sure you're aware of it. So, like, as you know, when we do a world update, we do a local legend. And I just want to highlight it.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. I was hoping we still had time for this. I thought I was getting told to cut this off, but if we can talk about this, I'd love to.
I want to talk about this. So I think I basically, as you know, I worked with Airplane Heaven quite a bit back in the day, who are from Australia.
Yep.
And I said to them, we're doing this world update. What is the right plane? And they were really, they mentioned, I think 3. One was the Gibbs Aero that already existed as an add-on. And then they said there's the first CAC, which is like Werribee, I forget what it's called.
We're away. Which is a Texan.
The CAC Boomerang. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And then it was the CAC Boomerang. So we did the CAC Boomerang. The 2020 version was made by Airplane Heaven. The 2024 version was made by iBuilds. And it's super cool. The WASP engine saw is awesome. And then this is something, I had this idea last week. And I said, when we did World Update 7, we had Local Legend 2, the Fokker F7, which has the Southern Cross.
Yep.
So I ended up talking to Fokker, and I basically said, hey, we have this world update. I would like to give this away for free for a week. And they said yes. So in celebration of World Update 21, the Fokker F7 will be available for everyone. And there's a brand new 2024 version of it coming out actually tomorrow.
That is fantastic. That is one of my favorite local legends, and not just because it's the Southern Cross livery. I absolutely love that. It's one of my favorites. I love the old ones, so they are great aircraft. So that is fantastic choice with the CIC Boomerang. Fantastic choice for that one. And yeah, seeing and thank you from the community for offering that for free for us for a week. That is great. So folks, don't forget, if you're watching this, go out and get your free add-on. Microsoft giving stuff away for free. Take that. Any final closing thoughts as we wrap up, or anything else you'd like to add?
Thanks for having us. Encourage everyone to also, if you're around here, jump onto the RFS website. Have a look at some tricks and tips for making your place a bit safer into the coming into the summer months, but also anyone out there that wants to come along and be part of it, you can join as a volunteer. Thanks.
I would say it's an absolute honor to be here. I'm here in the building, in the hangar, and these are all lifesavers. Like that's what these people do, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And I'm glad that we can connect and bring a little bit of what you do into Flight Sim and hopefully inspire some people. Yes.
Yeah. And folks, I do want to echo that as well. So as many of the audience may or may not know, I do a lot of work and charity work with the Royal Flying Doctor Service and the Rural Fire Service. No matter what state you're in Australia, relies on the contributions of the community, whether that be your time or donations or whatever. But if you are able to support them and their work, or even if you just want some tips on how to make yourself and your family safer in the challenges that we face here in Australia or the world, I would definitely highly recommend getting in touch with them. So I want to say thank you to you for all your work, Jayson, and thank you for supporting us. And I do want to say, Jorg, thank you for taking the time and actually sort of not only just going out for the expertise, but supporting a great endeavour that supports and saves the lives of Australians every single day.
Love it.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, folks. Thanks very much for joining us. Don't forget, as always, that you can check out more information over on the Microsoft Flight Simulator website and jump into the sim. The sim is available through the usual channels. And thanks very much for joining us on this interview. Take care. Safe skies to all, and we will see you on the next video. Bye for now.